So without further ado, we're just going to enter the matter for today, and that's basically what we are considering. You heard the acting national chairman there, and you also heard the Minister for the Federal Capital Territory, who still maintains, who is still a member of the PDP. Just to clarify that we're talking about the people who also rejected what the acting national chairman said. They were members of the National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party. No, they were not led by Mr. Debo Olugunagba, but he's a part of them. There were 11 members of the NWC led by Ambassador Taufik Arakbaja, who is the Deputy National Chairman South of the People's Democratic Party. Well, this morning, as you've seen there, we're being joined by Majeed Dahiru, who is a newspaper columnist, technical member of the Lux Terra Leadership Foundation, and also a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
So this is what we're looking at. It looks like the more you see, or the more you look, the less you see. 2 days ago, we saw that meeting led by the acting national chairman of the party going to INEC to seek, is it direction now, or to consult with INEC on the way forward? And some people say it was a bit odd. They haven't quite seen that before. Did you find it odd as well?
I didn't find it odd because, of course, you know my position on the PDP. You know, if I saw any sort of this coming, I mean, it's in the public domain. I saw it coming. I talked about it. We warned against it. So I'm sure you are baffled, kind of, and as most Nigerians would be, trying to make sense out of the nonsense, really, happening in what's supposed to be Nigeria's largest or most formidable opposition party, which has created this impression across the board that probably Nigeria might just slip into one party state because if the PDP that is supposed to provide alternative is not even finding its own bearing, then it means that the ruling party might just have, you know, a field day going to the next election despite its poor performances. So I'm not surprised because, you see, the PDP is like a sick man.
I don't think they will like that simile.
Oh, well, it's a simile. It's like a sick man that is suffering from multiple organ failure. So from its neck to the NWC to the Board of Trustees, the PDP is in a state of dysfunction. And unfortunately, the Governors Forum, which is supposed to be the caregivers in the intensive care unit where the PDP is now, are either rookie medical care providers or simply incompetent. So you can see that even though they're supposed to manage the crisis, they're not able to manage it because the Governors Forum ordinarily is supposed to be the most powerful, though unofficial organ of the party because those who fund the party, those who are the leaders of the party, those who give life to the party, that is the group they belong to. But even within that group, you have seen division again. So those are supposed to give care to a sick man that is in intensive care unit are chewing gum while they have an emergency case in their hands. And this all boils down to what happened before the 2023 election. You cannot divorce that from it. I keep saying that, look, the PDP committed a mortal sin, and so the PDP is likely to die. So you see, what we are witnessing is probably the dying face of the PDP. When Atiku Abubakar and his ambition happened to the PDP, it developed a wicked problem. But there's a very popular parlance in medical practice. They say prevention is better than cure. So now the problem is not necessarily the ailments that developed. It is what kind of lifestyle did you live as a human being that resulted into the kind of ailment you're battling with now. If you had lived a healthier lifestyle, probably you would not have developed that ailment. So when Atiku ran against the zoning principle in the PDP, it created a wicked problem. And it is the problem that the PDP is battling to contain. But in trying to contain it, they are also doubling down on the errors that characterize the judgment of the party before the 2023 election. So it's like a comedy of errors, or rather a tragedy of errors for the Nigerian democracy, really. And that is what the PDP has become today. So right now what you have is that there's a power tussle between two major blocks within the PDP. A block led by former Governor Wike and Minister of City now, who supports Samuel Anyanwu as Secretary of the party. While you have another group that is now being led by Seyi Makinde, so you're not surprised that the man who led the group that said Anyanwu should not resume or is no longer the secretary is Taufik Arakbaja, Ambassador Taufik Arakbaja, the former deputy governor of Oyo State, who's also the deputy national chairman of the party for the South. So, and of course, Debo Olugunagba is also from the Southwest. So the two musketeers right now within the PDP are former friends that may have turned foes. And I'm talking about former Governor Wike and Governor Shemakinde of Oyo State. That is where the PDP is now.
Which is a very interesting situation. I mean, I'm just wondering whether all of this can even be resolved, because it looks like whenever it says they reach a compromise, it's never, or what appears to be a compromise, it is never it will not be acceptable to another faction within the PDP who will think that, oh, the leadership has sold out. Here they are in a situation where, I mean, if you listen very carefully to the words of the acting national chairman, he said this is a very bitter pill for us to swallow. Asking the national secretary to come and resume. I wonder if I were the national secretary and someone says that you're coming back, you know, is a bitter pill, you know. I don't know how the person is supposed to feel free. You know, it means that you're not exactly welcome, but it looks like our hands are tied and we don't really have much of an option. If you've spoken with the Minister of the FCT before, you've heard some of his interviews, he will tell you that right now where the PDP is a very tricky situation, because he asked who's going to sign the nomination forms of the candidates when they emerge as candidates and send it to INEC, which is a very tricky position, because if that is not sorted, it's going to be a very, terrible place for any candidate to be if you win and it is challenged and you are removed. It means that you've just given free passage to whoever it is that is a runner-up in that particular position. So it does appear that it is critical for the PDP to have its national secretary as elected. But the question is, if that is the situation, you know, how are they supposed to navigate this? I'm just a little curious. If you are the national secretary, you are being described as a bitter pill. You eventually come back, and those who are saying no, you cannot continue to act, or you cannot continue to be national secretary. We want somebody else. What exactly do you think should happen?
No, the question would have been, what exactly is the crime of Senator Anyang? What has he done to warrant him be described as a bitter pill? For as long as I remember, Senator Anyang's political career has been in PDP for as long as since 1998 when the party was formed. Local government chairman, assembly member, senator. He's never left the party. Now, that he was supported to the position of national secretary of the party by Wike, who was a very influential governor within the party, it does not make him a bitter pill. I recall that when Wike lost out for the primary election to Atiku Abubakar, Samuel Anyang played his role as secretary to the very end. In fact, there were pressures on him from the other camp to say, look, don't sign the nomination of Atiku and Okowa. But he went ahead and signed it because it is his duty as secretary. He cannot, because of his friendship or his commitment or loyalty to a friend who has been a benefactor, renege on his own primary responsibility of signing on candidate that emerged through a free and fair process. No matter how much you may criticize the violation of zoning in the PDP, Atiku Abubakar emerged through a free and fair process. And so he played his role. He was in the campaign throughout. Atiku lost. Tinubu won. But, of course, Wike committed to not working for the party, for the candidate of his party, and worked for the president. And has been rewarded with a ministerial appointment. But he's still in the party, right? You cannot, because of that, begin to now malign somebody who is the secretary of the party. I'm talking about his sojourn in Imo, where he went to contest for governorship election. The constitution of the party, as now settled by courts of law, does not mandate an elected official of the party to resign before going to contest for another elective position. So based on that, he's a politician. You can aspire to leave your position as a senator to become a governor or go to become president without necessarily resigning for the previous elected position you hold. I think these are very basic issues. They've gone to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court gave a judgment that has multiple interpretations. But the fact that it has multiple interpretation is why the PDP needs to be very careful. Now, they've gone to INEC as well, and the float are getting is that INEC said, look, from our own interpretation and understanding, we advise that Anyang won't be allowed to run out his course. This is very simple and basic. And you cannot indeed begin to describe somebody you want to work with as secretary of a party as a bitter pill. I think the acting national chairman's communication pattern was a bit faulty. What he should have done is, having taken that decision, to allow Anyang to run out his term as secretary, I think it's going to elapse before the end of the year, was simply to begin to act and work with him seamlessly. That press conference wasn't necessary. The only thing you should have done is the next communication you're going to sign as it concerns the party will have your signature and his signature as secretary. It's as simple as and basic as that. But this is even a minor issue within the party, if you ask me, because it is easy to resolve. It's a matter of allowing him to run out his course. But the problem will now be, why are we having people within the party opposing Anya when it looks very dangerous to do? Because if indeed he does not sign communications on behalf of the party to INEC on their NEC meeting, even convention, it might render all of those processes null and void. Which might mean that the PDP indeed would have been a dead party by 2027 because you have no candidates fielded anywhere. So is somebody actually trying to throw a spanner in the works and hastening the death of PDP by seemingly opposing Nanyanwu and Wike? I don't seem to understand this. Although it can be argued that they're trying to wrestle the party from Wike, who has pledged support to the president. Yes, it is arguable. But this is not the way to do it. You cannot now cut your nose to spite your face because you're trying to wrestle the party from Wike. And so I think those that actually, that are in this battle should take a decision on what they want to do. Do they want to help to hasten the death of the PDP, or do they want to revive the PDP? Otherwise, for me, they could have simply waited for the convention and put in all their best to make sure that as much as possible, in the emergence of the next NWC, they whittle down the influence of Wike substantially. I think they believe that with the secretary that is loyal to Wike in the SAGRO, Wike will have influence in the emergence of the next NWC. But it's politics. Do what it is that Wike does, that using the power and influence to make things happen. So you have more governors on your side than one man as just a minister. I believe you can put the resources together, you can put all the strategies together, and upstage him. I mean, it's a free and fair process. Only him alone cannot muzzle all of you. It's a matter of simply putting your acts together and make sure that you take the party away from him and probably field a formidable candidate that can challenge the president in the next election.
Well, I do know that Ayo also has questions for you. Ayo, over to you.
Well, thank you, Maokwe. You know, Mr. Dahiru, do you think, because to me it seems like PDP has been grappling with symptoms of deeper issues, do you think the PDP has been able to trace the real root of its challenges? For instance, there are those who would argue that even from the very beginning, from its very foundation, it's been a college of friends, not necessarily just a group of people in the political elite just coming together, not really because they have identified an ideology, a political ideology. Fast forward to 2010, 2011, when the former president, the late President Muhammadu Yar'Adua passed on, there are some who felt betrayed by the party, which of course also there are those who say that affected the party's fortunes. Also in 2013, you remember the splinter groups that moved into APC when it was formed, only to move out a good number of them afterwards. So do you think, because unless we're getting it wrong, we're losing as a nation, not having a formidable opposition party, which the PDP was expected to have been playing, the role it's supposed to have been playing?
You are very spot on with this question. I think that is the larger conversation we should be having. Nigeria has been a democracy for 26 years now, since 1999. But I can assure you that the weakest link in Nigeria's democratic value chain is the political party system. It has been an utter failure. And in fact, out of the crises we are witnessing as a nation, be it economic, be it security, in every facet, it's actually a failure of the political party system, because ordinarily in a democracy, the political party system is supposed to be the brain box of that democracy. You know, laws don't operate themselves, principles don't operate themselves, policies don't actually implement themselves. You need the human touch, the political will, to give life to the intent, the letters, and the spirit of the Constitution. But when you have a political party system that is basically about friends coming together, as rightly pointed out, to grab power for self-service, it means that brain box has been corrupted right from the beginning. And unfortunately, when the PDP fell from power in 2015, one would have thought that the party would have gone into an introspection in order to come out now with a party that is truly ideologically defined, that would have learned from his mistakes in 16 years, in order to dig into the people power and get the people on the side to challenge the APC. But what we have seen is same of the same. It's like political parties in Nigeria are simply a splinter of one another, an atomization of one another. Basically no difference, it's simply the same goal. Come together, grab power at all costs, and serve self. And that is the major challenge in our democracy. Why those in the ruling party that are in power have the luxury, after they have incumbency, they have the luxury, not to think out of the box. But for those who want to upstage them democratically and play their role as alternative in a democracy that will make things better for the people and make democracy meaningful and sensible, all political parties, and most especially the PDP, has failed. In this instance, the failure has been even worse, because while they lost power in 2015 and acknowledged that the violation of zoning since 2011, when Yar'Adua died, and in 2015 was primarily responsible, meaning, well, even among bandits, there should be honor. So if we are not been able to deliver the goods to the people, at least the agreement we have among us as friends that we should rotate up between ourselves should have been abided by. And so there was that realization. And if you give credit to the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, he stepped aside and allowed the party to heal and recover. And so the party made the resolution that we're going to retain power in the north in the next round of election in 2014. That was how Atiku became a beneficiary of this resolution, when the entire southern flank of the party supported their northern half to the presidency, the presidential ticket of the party in 2019. But what has happened now is that, having violated this zoning flagrantly in 2023, the party has not settled down to realize this error, to realize that they have committed the mortal sin and repent thereof. They have not even, it's like they are still even in denial as to how they lost. They are still blaming a wiki, for instance, whose reaction was only natural in the way the articles of this world, the members of this world, and other members of the northern part of the PDP revolted against the PDP in 2015 to ensure that the party lost. It was simply what they did. But rather than reconciling and acknowledging that something went wrong, we wronged this part of the country, and we now need reconciliation and healing, and possibly do what they did in 2015 by saying, by 2027, it is not sacrosanct that the candidates of the party will come from the south. They have not done so. There's no clarity. And this is 2 years to the election.
But Mr.
There's
Dahiru,
no clarity on this. They are still fighting those that they perceive are working against their candidate who emerged from the wrong part of the country. We warned ahead of Wike himself. We talked about it. We said, look, this was going to rock the party. And it has rocked the party. What has happened to the party?
Mr. Dahiru,
the PDP has lost its most support.
If you don't mind me busting in
the south,
my sincere apologies, Mr. Dahiru, if you can hear me.
It's a big
my sincere apologies, if you can hear me. I apologize for butting in, but all of these are still sounding like the signs of the deeper issue. You said something the other time that the party system has failed Nigerians thus far. And the PDP is demonstrating it massively. We've had opposition in Nigeria's political history down through the ages. Even in this Fourth Republic, we have had very, very serious opposition to the ruling party. But right now, since 2015, it seems like we haven't had one. Now, it goes back to the question of whether or not the party, the PDP, has identified its own political ideology to which everybody, every member of the party must sign up to, as opposed to a collision of elites who just formed a political party as a vehicle for wrestling power.
Party has not been able to identify its national secretary, let alone an ideological clarity that can enable it to provide the alternative to the party, to the ruling party, and to consolidate democracy in Nigeria. The PDP is not even able to identify its own secretary, let alone sit down to craft a clear line of alternatives that can become an ideology that can be identified with the party. To which people can say, look, since Party A is offering ABC, Party B in the PDP is offering XYZ, so we now prefer the XYZ to the ABC. The PDP is far from there. They don't even realize the need to do this. In fact, as we speak, the PDP is still trying to assemble more people, elite and friends, to prepare their other friends in the ruling APC. And I do not think that Nigerians, at this point in our life, 26 years after democracy, are willing to be used as ping pong any longer in the table of political game by friends and elites, that one day they are friends, the next day they are foes, only about their intention to grab power for self-service. So you're absolutely right. The PDP is very far, very far. And indeed, all political parties in Nigeria,
is that likely to change?
From what you call, that's needed ideological clarity. That will distinguish from one another and give Nigerians the needed choices as is supposed to be the liberal democracy.
But is that an alternative? Is that any clear? My apologies again, Mr. Dahiru.
Including the ruling party.
Is there a chance that it will be different in 2027, given what we're already seeing? These friends, as you call them, are already marshalling each other to form coalitions, you know, here and there towards the 2027 election. The argument is, hey, that is what the APC did in 2015, towards 2015 election, in 2013, 2014, you know, with the coalition of, I don't know if to use the word friends, as you put it, and some political parties merged together to form a single one. But in this case, it seems that the same thing is already happening. In fact, the collision it depends on what side of the divide you find yourself. There are those who are trying to strengthen an existing political party. There are those who are coalescing to form a totally different political party altogether. Is that a threat to the PDP, or how do you see that playing out in 2027?
You talk about 2014. You see, this is 2025, and 2 years' time with 2027. Now, what happened in 2015 could happen because Nigeria was still a teenager democracy. It was just 16 years old. So people still didn't understand that there was a need for ideological clarity. So people came together and said, we are better than these people. And they fronted a man who had a reputation up until then for being a retired army officer and a man that was incorruptible. So it was easy to sell their alliance, their coalition, their whatever, around the figure of President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, after 8 years of the Buhari government, that was an absolute failure, and the 2 years so far of another APC administration that has failed to perform, Nigerians are now looking beyond just personalities and individuals to rehearse the specifics of how you are going to actually translate our lives to become better. Unfortunately, the people in the arena today are not reading the tea leaves correctly. So, for instance, I do not think that anything will be different, except they prove me wrong going forward, from what you've seen in the past. Because I've listened to all of those that want to oppose the president. All of those that have an axe to grind with the president is based on personality issues. It looks like people are coming together, people that are angry and frustrated that have been left out to the dining table where the national cake is being shared, and are simply throwing tantrums at the president. And I keep telling them that, look, we may be unsatisfied as Nigerians with what we have today, but Nigerians may not be willing to trade one set of oppressors and underperformance with another state just because you have quarrels among yourselves. I've listened to those who are opposing the president, even on basic issues, for instance, such as the president's policy of subsidy removal on petrol and flotation of the naira. I've not had an alternative to this policy from everybody that is pretending to be an opposition to the president. I've not had one single alternative to say, look, I'm going to do the opposite of what this man has done. Even the changing of our national anthem to the old one, as basic and as, you know, as funny as that could sound, you would have expected that that would have been a political issue where somebody would say, if you elect me as president, we will return the old and new national anthem, something as basic as that. We've not heard anything in this regard. All we're hearing is, the man is evil, he's a devil, he's this. We know that all of you are devils and evil. We know you have been doing since 1999. Our lives have not been better. What are you going to do differently? You need to convince somebody who has been cheated severely by series of lovers about your seriousness beyond just common words. You have to come with something serious to arouse interest once more. And we're not seeing that at all. And that is the danger to our democracy. There will be predictions that democracy might die in Nigeria or is dying in Africa. And I've said that democracy dying in Africa or in Nigeria specifically will not necessarily be about the underperformance of the ruling party. It will be actually about the failure of the opposition to provide the needed alternative that can inspire people power to challenge incumbents. Because when people listen to you and they are complaining of high cost of energy, and you are not pledging to bring down the cost of energy, on what basis will I come out to vote for you? When people are complaining of high interest rates that is killing businesses, and you cannot even summon the courage to say, look, I am going to bring down the gap in the exchange rate to a level where it will not hurt the economy. Why on earth should I work for you?
So the question for a number of people will be, whatever happened to intellectual rigor within the political parties? Is it just a matter of playing politics, you know, seeking more members, or we're edging towards or we're inching towards a one-party state? No, we're not. And that's where the conversation, these matters which you have raised, which should form the basis, which should form the manifesto, will I say, the foundation of what political parties truly stand for. It does seem to be missing, doesn't it?
Completely missing. Completely. And that is why our democracy is suffering. Again, not necessarily because somebody is in power. It is because you have the opportunity to take advantage of the incumbency disadvantage arising from the performance of the ruling party, have not been able to convert that to your advantage.
Where should we be looking to for this sort of intellectual depth? Should we be looking to the ivory towers? Should we be looking at the intelligentsia? Should we be looking to the media? Where should we be looking for it?
Ordinarily, it's supposed to be in the political party system. And all of these tendencies that you've talked about, an interest group, are supposed to be collapsed into a progressive political party where, like I said, as the brain box of the democracy, their ideas, considering our current challenges, will be synthesized and filtered into a clarified and comprehensible ideological leaning blocks that can help move us from where we are to where we ought to be. Look, you know my opinions on some of these things. Nigeria for so long has been a neoliberal economic operating country. And it's very easy for our political leaders, when they chant things like government having no business in business, it allows them to focus only on politics and allow the means of production to be the so-called hands of the private sector. Now, one would have thought that 25 years later, having seen that there is a gap in this narrative, in this ideology, in this philosophy, that a political party would have emerged to say no, rather than saying government has no business in business. Government indeed has business in business, because the only business of government is doing business. And the government that cannot do business has no business being in government. No party has been bold enough to do this. When we look at the trade war between China, for instance, and America, recently, America had to back down. Because what China proved was that state capitalism, that is one that has government involved in means of production, has triumphed America's entrepreneurial capitalism. America could not cope. China has $3 trillion in its foreign reserve. America has less than $1 trillion in its own foreign reserve. If America wants to spend money, it has to print. China ends it through export competitive economy that is driven by the Chinese state. So in Nigeria, I'll ask you, apart from taxation, for instance, and levies that are everly increasing, today we're going to sign new tax bills into law, right, by the president. We are celebrating it. Now, the question is, outside tax and levies and interest rates,
what other ways are governments
earning money from state to local government to federal government? Can you tell me? Whereas any Chinese entity you see in Nigeria operating, either as a confectionery firm, basically as a confectionery, bottling company, water bottling company, to road construction, all belong to the Chinese state. Meaning, for every other services you patronize, it goes into their own version of their federation account from Nigeria here. It's the same thing in the most part of Europe. Look, the French economy is dominated by state-owned enterprises. The French economy. Total Energy that we are celebrating is come back to Nigeria to invest is a state-owned enterprise of the French government. This is the norm all over the world, because the state must be involved. Again, no political party has been able to come up with the boldness to say, rather than continue along this line, we as a political party, when you elect us from state to bottom, to the local government and to the federal government, we are going to be involved in the midst of production to create jobs and raise revenue externally rather than from internally generated revenue through taxes and levies. It is completely absent.
Well, I know that for me, I think that you've given us food for thought, and I really did wish that we had brought you in with the next guest whom we are expecting on the program, because I'm sure he certainly will have some thoughts on what it is that you have shared with us this morning. But certainly, that certainly gives food for thought in terms of because what I see is that there is still plenty of room for political party development in Nigeria.
Seriously.
There's plenty of room, and there's so many gaps, so many things to be filled, because the people are yearning for governance. But we have to thank you so much for coming on the program this morning. Majeed Dahiru is a newspaper columnist, a technical member of the Luke Stera Leadership Foundation, and also a global affairs analyst. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.